The challenge for Apple, and I do think they tried really hard, is to exploit the power of artificial intelligence while still being true to their efforts to protect consumer privacy. And at the same time, the challenge is that you could argue that if you look at what's gone on with ChatGPT so far, and a lot of the challenges that Google's had, is that the artificial intelligence really isn't ready for prime time, meaning that the hallucinations are causing a lot of errors. And I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens when consumers use their Apple devices and come across these errors. And I think that's a challenge for the tech industry as a whole, and now for Apple.
Yeah, you sounded pretty bearish going into this, and it sounds like your view hasn't really changed. I mean, how has WWDC sort of shaped your view of the company as a whole?
The best thing now is we understand Apple's strategy. I think that's very important. And then the most perfect example of what they're doing with artificial intelligence right now is the Vision Pro. They indicated there were 2,000 native apps for the Vision Pro. I think that's kind of a small number. I don't think the rollout you saw in the March quarter was very significant, but I think that it's important that they get started with that, and we'll see how that blossoms over time. So I do think it's important now that they have a narrative, this Apple intelligence and that sort of thing. So now I'll be curious to see how it all plays out. But yeah, they didn't say anything that really changes my mind on the stock over the next 12 to 18 months.
So what would change your mind on the stock? I mean, because obviously there's a fair amount of circumspection that, this is a mature growth company. And so how much more? Yeah.
The product cycle for the iPhone, it's half their revenue. I like to point to the television behind me. It's a great example of a consumer device that's had a product cycle that's multiple decades. The iPhone first came out in 2007. It's 17 years old. So how long can Apple continue to generate half its revenue from one product? And then if I'm wrong and this ends up being a new upgrade cycle for AI following the upgrade cycle for 5G, then that would really get me a lot more excited about the stock, given half the revenue coming from the iPhone.
There are some people who do say that this is very much the start of what could be a historical upgrade cycle. In fact, you had Dan Ives speaking this morning saying this is the first step in a march towards $4 trillion market cap over the next year. So what do you make of that?
So two things. Number one, are they going to be a $4 trillion cap but still lag Microsoft and NVIDIA, who are much better positioned right now to exploit artificial intelligence? And then number two, it isn't clear to me that this will be the start of a new upgrade cycle. The beauty of owning an Apple product is when they upgrade the software, your older iPhone still works beautifully and feels like new. So it's unclear to me, that they're going to push the Apple chips, things of that nature. But the essence of Apple is making the consumer excited about owning an iPhone for years to come by upgrading the software every year. So I'm not sure that they're going to convince them to buy new hardware. Remains to be seen.